guy?
Yeah, just like I said,
Should
more
wait till
than happy,
the guy?
just like I told you a week and a half ago, more than happy to come over anytime you want to, any meeting.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, please,
Sorry.
for today's Gardner Zoning Board of Appeals. Before we begin tonight's public hearing, I would like to familiarize you with some of the ground rules on which we conduct the hearing. In Gardner, 4 members out of 5 of the Zoning Board of Appeals must be present to conduct a public hearing. Applications will normally be heard in each sequence in which they appear in the public notice. The board's under no obligation to adhere. All hearings shall be open to the public, and no person shall be excluded unless he or she is considered to be a hindrance to the workings of the board. An applicant may appear in his or her own behalf or be represented by agent or attorney. The applicant or his or her representative shall present the case to the board. Representatives of the city shall be heard. The abutters to the property present shall be heard. Those in opposition to the application shall be heard. The board must render its decision regarding variance requests within 100 days after the application was duly filed in the office of the city clerk. The board regarding special permits must conduct a public hearing within 65 days after the application was duly filed in the office of the city clerk. The board must render its decision regarding special permits within 90 days after the closing of the public hearing. All 4 members out of 5 of the board must vote in favor of the variance or special permit for it to be granted and approved. The right to appeal the decision of the board is provided for in Chapter 40A of the Zoning Act. The information is available in the office of city clerk. No variance or special permit or any extension, modification, or renewal thereof shall take effect until notification from the city clerk that 20 days have elapsed after the decision has been filed in that office and no appeals have been filed and is recorded in the registry of deeds for the county or district. The board requests that each person identify himself or herself as to name and address before addressing the board. Sitting on tonight's hearing, starting on my far right, Lori Weeder, Richard Hanks, myself, Ray LaFawn, Mel Cornett, Dave Anteo. The meeting will be taped and videotaped. Does anyone object to the videotaping? There's no objections. So we will begin our first case. It's a continuance that has gone on for a while. And it's case 2022-0101. MHG3 Fund LLC, Jonathan Bombachi, 163-165 Pine Street, parcel ID R22-6-8, special permit violation follow-up. And Attorney Tree is going to be the representing individual for Mr. Bombachi.
I will.
Okay.
I will be doing that. All right. I will be connecting and then hopefully starting the PowerPoint presentation today. So, good. So at the last meeting, we had a substantial discussion of some proposed alternatives to how are we going to resolve this issue of the retaining wall was built in the wrong place. We're just not able to comply with the reconstruction plan. And we had presented 3 alternatives, and we had received some substantial feedback and comments from the board, which was much appreciated and helped give us a little bit of guidance. So I'm going to just page through. We've at various points addressed all of the other conditions associated with this special permit in the interests of conserving everybody's time today. I just want to focus on the issue of the parking lot, and what are we going to do to resolve the special permit conditions. I did want to give an update on the building issues, which is that the contractor to perform the fixes to the landing on the exit has been signed, and their work start date is next week. The building permit was pulled on March the 15th for that work. That work will need to be completed with the inspection done on the work after its completion before we can get to a request that a board made, which was, can we get a letter from the building commissioner verifying that other than compliance with the special permit conditions, there are no other outstanding conditions barring the issuance of a permanent certificate of occupancy. And I believe the building commissioner has noted there will be annual inspections due on the rented units as well in the future.
Oh, that's going to depend on the condition of the building, which will determine the length of the periodic inspection.
Right.
It should get issued.
Right, but that's a determination that will be made by the building commissioner and then complied with in the future. So, we had at the last meeting presented 3 alternatives and centered on an option that changed the configuration of the existing parking, particularly movement of one of the buddy parking spaces towards the rear parking lot, plus the addition of 2 spaces on the off-site location at 307 Pine Street. And if I move forward to that, because this is just about where we are right now, I just want to make sure I have the right version of this up. Nope, that is today's version. This was the parking plan that was approved, the site plan that was approved for the lot. And as you can see, we are missing the 3 parking spaces that were lost once the depth of the part of the lot shrunk. And those are the 3 spaces over nearest to the building. So this is what we're proposing as a resolution. And I understand that procedurally, we're going to have to go through some additional steps. At the last meeting, the board wanted a little more information before it gave its indication of how to resolve this, understanding that the board is not bound by that because it's not going to be bound by a vote. And I'm just going to hopefully, this is our proposal. We allow the permit holder to modify the existing buddy parking on the side, that is the 2 spaces over here that were allocated to 1 unit, by sliding the interior space into the upper right corner of the rear parking lot, which will require the construction of a small retaining wall of about 6 feet 3 inches. And I say small because the other one would have been 22 feet in height. And that is near, as I said, the corner of the parking lot on the right and nearest to the building, and then also marking it as a compact space. This will result in having 9 separately functional spaces on site. Now that doesn't change the number on site, but what it does is it makes each unit available to use a space without having to worry about the tandem parking issue of who's behind me. So I think it improves the functionality of the spaces that are available in the lot.
So does that mean on looking at the building, and I assume you're talking the lot, I'll call it a driveway on the right-hand side of the building?
Yes.
That goes down. So you've got the buddy parking there for 2. And now you're going to build in some addition to put another car in.
Yes.
How is their entrance and exit? Is that through the main parking lot?
The
not
interior
up to
space is
incline.
through the rear parking lot. The upper space is via the street. And there are plans that I'm gonna show in a moment. The second thing would be allow the permit holder to provide the two missing spaces on the off-site location at 307 Pine Street. We would submit a new parking plan for 307 Pine Street, and I have a proposed easement deed that is between the ownership between the two lots, so it would run with the land, it would be recorded at the Registry of Deeds and be a permanent easement for the use of those two spaces. I will bring those out a little bit later on after we've gone through the plan. We are proposing that if we do these two things, that we keep the number of dwelling units at 8, no more than 2 bedrooms per unit, that we complete the paving, including the paving of those buddy spaces, and put in permanent striping. The striping right now is temporary while this was being resolved. And then submit the as-built plan, which would be required anyway for both parking lots. So that in summation is the proposal. I'm next going to move through the plans a little bit, unless you want to stop for
I just have a question. We're gonna have a compact car space. What's the dimensions of the compact car space?
As depicted on the plan, it's 9 by 18. It's dimensionally compliant. So we've depicted it as required. It's noted as compact because you're gonna see the spacing between that space and the other parking spaces at the end is limited. So there's more limited maneuverability. And that's the reason for the labeling as a compact space. We still think it is usable as a space and more usable to the residents in the building if it's separately accessible than tandem.
So you still would be able to put in a normal-sized vehicle in that compact space?
As delineated, it's 9 by 18, which would be for a normal sized vehicle. We're not proposing to reduce the size of the space, but I did want to note that there is a limited distance between that and other parking spaces.
Excuse me, are you
Yes.
referring to, for the person in that space, meaning that they would have less room to maneuver, to turn around,
That's right.
to exit, or even enter?
Right. Pulling in, if you pull straight in, it's not really gonna matter. Coming out,
Okay,
it's gonna be,
so same size lots, parking space
mhm.
size, but because of the maneuverability, you wanna label it compact.
Yes, so that if it's a compact car, we should get a shorter car length in there, which will allow for better maneuverability of the unit.
Thank you.
How do you intend to police that going forward? I mean, it's easy enough to market,
It is,
but we know that people tend to park where they don't park. Unless they are designated per apartment, so each one of those parking spaces is gonna be designated to specific apartments.
so that would make sense with the number of parking spaces versus the number of units. I think this is something that can be conditioned as marked and designated to specific units. The landlord is going to have to manage that with the tenant, Right.
I know, yes.
and I think that's going to require an application for that particular space, verification that it is in fact a compact car, and then designation of that space to the unit. That might mean that space moves from unit to unit as vehicles change.
I understand, I just wondering how you're gonna manage it, that's all.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that the building commissioner wants to get involved in that long term.
Well, I
Because-
don't, I'm sorry, I don't think that it's something that we would police. The only thing that I worry about is what if your tenant has a child or becomes disabled in some capacity and is no longer able to have a compact vehicle? How do you police it? And what happens if you tell that individual, no, you don't have a parking space anymore? I think you have a significant problem on your hands at that point.
I think that's not a city liability issue at all. It certainly is a concern for the landlord to properly deal with. There is, I believe, one of the units is accessible in this building, the one allocated to the,
The buggy is accessible, yeah.
yeah,
The rest of them are on stairs, so like, you'd have any ADA issue getting access to the building,
yeah.
other than the one spot that has 2 parking spaces.
Yeah, so there is a natural progression of if somebody becomes disabled
Sure.
while a tenant,
So what I would say is the building itself is not accessible to persons with disabilities. None of the units are. None of the driveways don't meet the slope requirements, the steps up into the lower levels. Not that it's required to be because it's not enough units. But just
are
a
there
point
any,
of clarification.
are there any specific modifications to that unit that makes it more accessible?
There's just no stairs into the.
Mr. Abachi, I'm gonna ask you to state your name and address if you're gonna address the board, so if this is looked at and there's another voice, they're gonna know who is speaking, so.
Sure, yeah. John Mabachi, 88 Main Street.
So this is the as-built plan. This was depicted last time, and it displays the parking spaces in the back and the 2 buddy spaces on the side, 7 and buddy. At the last meeting, we had a rough version of the proposal, which is to, and I think here, we left 7 and buddy and just created 8 over there. Would there be a dimensional issue with continuing to do that? So we could still do that. It's not what's depicted, but we could still do that, so you'd end up with still having the 2 buddy spaces.
So could you please go back to that slide?
Of course.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So the green outline is the proposed parking spot number 8, which is, you said it's a 9 by 18 compliant spot.
Mhm.
You're trying to put a compact car in there, but from that bottom left corner to the compliant, say, space number 1,
Mhm.
you only get about 12 feet in between those 2 points. And I drive a compact car, and that would take me about a 30-point turn to turn that car around to come
Yeah.
out of that driveway.
So then one of the next slide has dimensions on it, and I did a close-up of this area, and I'll see if I can make it a little closer. So you can see the spot labeled 8 has 9 by 18. And if we go from the spot number 1 straight to the edge of the pavement that surrounds the building and the landing for the stairs, that has 19 foot 6 inches. I also asked, in looking at this plan, we do now have a little extra space between the end of space 1 and the existing retaining wall. That's about 2 feet. There are 10 feet between the top end of space 1 and the bottom end of space 8. So I think that's the dimension that you were probably just talking about, 10 feet. That's one of the reasons I think a compact car would be preferred in there. And just to review, I want to acknowledge what the requirements are under the ordinance. A maneuvering aisle for 90-degree parking is 24 feet, 60-degree parking 18 feet, 45-degree parking 14 feet. And again, you have a width there of 19 feet 6 inches.
Did you say the maneuverable space
For 90 degrees, 24.
is 24, and we've got 19.6?
We do.
Okay.
For 60 degree, it's 18 feet. So in the submission of this plan, there may be some dimensional relief that is required in order to make it work. but that is the amount of space available if we have compliant 9 by 18 parking spaces. There's simply no room to move any closer. So this is the proposal before the board. I'm going to go back to the prior slide. We did insert the topographical lines there on the back. I apologize. I don't know why. I thought we omitted one of the buddy parking spaces. They're both there. So you have 2 buddy parking spaces on the side. You have that inserted diagonal space on the right corner. And you have the 6 compliant spaces on the left-hand side that are existing.
Now, is the paving on that buddy parking side, does that go all the way back to the retaining wall?
It does.
It does.
And so in theory, that car could park its way into that spot a little bit. I think the engineer was a little bit concerned because it measured a couple of inches short than 9 feet. But in reality, that car probably ends up coming up the driveway a little bit. It's not quite 9 feet wide, which is why he stuck it at the end of the building. If that makes sense. It's like a couple inches short of 9 feet wide.
So now this plan is different than the one with the green.
Yes,
It's a different
that was
configuration.
that was a draft plan, so this has more measurements in it, and is more specific.
This was done by Mackenzie Engineering, I believe.
And so there's the PDF of this PowerPoint will go into Mercedes at the end of the evening today, and she can circulate it to everybody so there can be some further review of the details of the plan. I'm happy to focus in on any area if you want me to enhance and enlarge it right now.
Please.
Okay. So here was the proposed plan in the March meeting. And I'm just going to point out, again, this was presented for concept, and the request was to have a little more detail. That's present here. There's no modification, of course, to the existing driveway on the other side, which was constructed to plan. And I think the spaces are kind of scooted down a little bit so that you do have that little bit of space at the top of parking space 1 between there and the wall. Up here, where the new wall comes in, you can see that there's a little bit of the old wall that would have to come down here. The construction of the new wall up here, again, the maximum height is 6'3". Just to address, should it arise an issue as to whether or not it's appropriate to construct this so close to the boundary. The existing driveway over there is pre-existing non-conforming structure, which can be extended back along the same property line. That does not extend or increase the non-conformity nature because it simply goes along the same line.
Is that property line right, or is that driveway right up against the property line, I assume?
Yes,
Always has been, I think.
yes, always has been. There would be a guardrail on top of the wall for safety purposes all around. I don't know what else I could say to further explain, but happy to answer questions. Okay. I'm going to move on then. This is looking at the issue of the off-site parking, the other 2 spaces. This was a slide from last month showing you that the distance measured between the 2 properties is 1,159 feet. The road is sidewalked. And I really look at this as necessity parking when there's a need to remove cars from the on-street parking that is regularly used by everybody in the neighborhood in case of snow or other need.
Now, is there, unfortunately I missed the last meeting, so you probably had this discussion, but why only 2 spaces versus the 3 and not do the parking down in
Well, I
That's
think we're
proposed.
only missing 2 spaces, but,
That you were missing 3.
so it's labeled 8 plus a buddy parking space, so that's 9. I've always counted it as 9, and we need 2. I'm gonna say on the plan you're gonna see in a moment, there is room for another parking space because
Well,
there's
that's why I'm
more
wondering,
parking than
just
is
in
needed.
case. Because when you get a little snow back there, that, I'm guessing that space may be a little tight to get in and out of.
Yeah, so I think there's some flexibility of the permit holder on that if there's a desire to have 3 spaces down there, if that improves the situation. This was the aerial of 307 Pine Street, and just to center in, it's this structure right here. There is an existing garage in the back. This is an abandoned or vacant property that was recently purchased by the permit holder. It is a 2-family, and the intent is to renovate it to a 2-family. So there are 2 parking spaces in the garage existing. And then this is kind of again a rough draft of the current parking situation on that lot. 2 in the garage, 3 more available on the side. This is the proposal. And I'm going to just note that at the front right, we have the existing dwelling structure. In the middle, the crosshatch structure is the existing garage. And then there are 7 spaces proposed to be constructed behind the garage. This has an existing interior driveway that runs along the bottom past the house, and has an existing parking area. As you saw, that is about half of the space between the house and the garage. The proposal would be to continue that paved parking past the garage to create the parking area on the left. And I do have a little bit of a closer picture here. So on the exterior, these are 7 dimensionally compliant spaces. There is a 24-foot maneuvering aisle between the spaces. There is, and I was noting this as I was looking at it today. It's a residential use, one way or the other. And the parking spaces should not be located more than 5 feet closer to any lot line. While we do have the existing driveway, again, we can extend out under that pre-existing non-conforming structure. We can also move the parking spaces 5 feet this way and just set them off that line a little bit. That would comply as well with some discussion that the board had, that it might be good to install a fence or some landscaping screening along that property line in order to screen lighting from vehicles from the other residential properties. I'm also going to note that because the spaces are located behind the garage itself is going to screen some of the lighting from the structure on that lot.
Is that all gonna be paved or some type of
Yes,
hard surface?
yes. It'll be paved. It'll be paved. There are less than 8 surface spaces, and your ordinance 675, 770B is very specific about surface parking and no more than 8 spaces. And then you don't have any requirement to meet the lighting and the landscaping portions of the ordinance. Now, where we have 9 spaces here, but 2 of them are within the structure, we are under that with the 7 that are surface parking spaces. The permit holder also wanted to do a little designation of snow load, and again, we are in draft form here, so snow load would go over to the other side of the parking lot, and that conical shape, the tan one, is meant to represent the light disbursement from the light on the back of the I'm glad Commissioner Zuppa is here. The permit holder had sent this plan for comment to the building commissioner. This was the comment that was received back in email. I don't think there was anything like a formal form of intent or anything submitted for a zoning opinion, a zoning determination. So the referral here was the board's past reluctance to approve off-premises parking. And then there's a comment about this being considered a commercial parking lot that I do want to talk about. But I also want to say that the building commissioner should be given a full opportunity to review the zoning ordinance and come to a formal determination. And I don't mean to surprise him with an email comment. I did not know he was going to be here. So on this question, there is no definition of a commercial parking lot. In the zoning ordinance, there's no use associated with that in the use table. We have parking structure or parking area in the definitions section of the ordinance, that is 675-210. And this is a structure, building, or lot, or part of a lot which is accessory to a residential, commercial, or industrial establishment and is primarily for the parking and storage of vehicles operated by the occupants, customers, etc. So this refers to a parking lot or a parking garage. And I think this language is referring to the fact that it's accessory to the primary use on the lot. Where it's primarily for the use, we have, again, 9 total parking spaces or 7 surface parking spaces, only 2 of which we're looking to designate for off-premises use. So I still think we do stay within that primary use being accessory to the residential structure on the lot. And again, I do think it's appropriate to give Commissioner Zuppa more of an argument on that question, so that he can look at it and make an appropriate determination as he sees fit. That is all I have for
I'm sorry,
this.
could you go back to that? I didn't finish reading that.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So the summation of that is I don't think we have a use variance required for off-premises parking as long as the primary parking use is for the structure on the lot.
If all of this area is going to be hardtop of some sort, blacktop, what percentage of open land are you gonna have on that lot?
I don't think there's a determination on that. I don't think we have a calculation on that. But I can go back to the, so if you can see from this, there's a small portion at the end that is
Well, I saw that,
undeveloped.
but it's important to know what percentage of coverage you have.
I think that's definitely appropriate for inclusion on the final version. And thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, please, could you go back to that last slide that
The
I
last
asked you to go
one.
back to, because I was still reading?
I am sorry.
It's all right, I'm slow. So reading the definitions, a structure, building, or lot, or part of a lot which is accessory to a residential, commercial, industrial establishment, and is primary, which is highlighted.
That was me.
That was you, very good. For the parking and storage of vehicles operated by the occupants, customers, visitors, and employees of such an establishment or residence. These parking spaces are not for that establishment.
They're not. The 2 spaces we've been talking about are for an off-premises. What I'm saying is there are 7 surface spaces, and the majority of those spaces are dedicated for the use of the residents of the building at 307 Pine. And therefore, the primary use of the lot, which is what we're looking at, the parking lot, not individual spaces. The primary use of the parking lot is accessory to the residents of 307 Pine Street.
But are you not trying to bring people from 163, 65 be able to park in this lot?
2 or 3
Which,
out of
does
7.
that not contradict what that says? It's
No.
not part of the establishment of that residence.
It is primarily for the parking and storage of vehicles operated by the occupants. So primarily for the occupants of 307 Pine. If I have 7 spaces in a lot, and I'm looking at the lot, I'm not looking individually at spaces. If the lot has 2 out of 7 dedicated to the use off premises and 5 out of 7 dedicated to the on premises use, then the primary use of that parking lot is for the on premises use.
Mr. Chair, may I just,
You may.
because my email was used here, I would say this is a 2-family structure, 2 bedrooms each. So the requirement there is 4 parking spaces. It appears that you're creating 9 parking spaces, which, if I do the math correctly, there are 5 additional spaces that are not for this. So the creation of 5 additional spaces are not accessory to this use. They would be accessory to 163, 165 Pine Street. Well, since only 4 spaces are required, so you're creating an abundance of extra spaces that are not required or not needed. So I think that pulls out the primary allotment of spaces there, which are not required for 307 Pine Street. I think it's a fair assumption to say that they're allocated to 163 Pine Street, 165 Pine Street.
So there's a difference between a requirement and actual use. The relationship that would be set up is by easement. And the easement allows a specific right to pass, repass, and park. Pass, repass is through the necessary channels of the plan. Park is only on 2 designated spaces. So there is no right to use the additional parking spaces by 163, 165 Pine Street. We can certainly reduce the amount of parking, and many structures have parking in excess of the requirement. But I don't think that really helps anybody to reduce off-street parking. And if the balance ever got so that there was a right to use more than half of the parking in another off-street use, then we might lose that primary use remaining in 307 Pine Street.
Attorney Tree, do you consider the driveway on 307 to be an access driveway?
I consider it to be an access driveway that is pre-existing. It's there.
Okay, have you looked at chapter, 675, 770 about access driveways and dimensions and location and other conditions of snow removal? I'll call it, you touched a little bit on blocking light, for neighbors or budding properties, landscaping, etc. Have you looked at that, and have you have any comments on that?
So I would comment on 770, and the discussion that you're having about lighting and landscaping requirements is in section B. And in the introductory paragraph, it says all surface parking areas containing more than 8 spaces shall be laid out and enhanced by landscaping according to the following standards. So that whole section B is not applicable to this parking lot. As far as other driveways, anytime we have a driveway that is pre-existing non-conforming that we are not modifying, we're not modifying the existing driveway and its width, then the fact that it is non-conforming with any current requirements as to width doesn't matter. And it is going to be a pre-existing non-conforming structure as long as it's been there for 10 years or more. This certainly is a building that is, and paving that's been there for 10 years or more.
So it's a pre-existing non-conforming access. So now you're intensifying the use of that pre-existing non-conforming, are you not, by adding more parking?
Of the driveway? you know, there's
You've
an
gone-
argument for
You've gone
that.
from a garage that
Yeah.
holds 2 cars, now you're trying to get 9 parking spaces out of it, so
That's true.
that's an increase of a non-conformity.
It's an increase of a nonconformity that we could seek a special permit for through the zoning provisions. But yes, I think there's an argument to be had.
So along that lines though too, is what, well, I guess one of my concerns about this is that, you know, we're talking about moving or allowing the ability for 163-65 to be able to park at 307. What ability do we have to grant that without any of the abutters being notified that, hey, heads up, all of a sudden you're gonna have 9 parking spots right abutting you,
Mhm.
where in the past it was a 2-family with 2 to 4 parking spots. So that would be one of my questions is
Mhm.
what, should there be some kind of notification to the abutters that we're trying, you're seeking to modify your special permit from 163-65
Mhm.
to include 307?
Mhm.
And the abutters have not been, well,
I absolutely agree, there's a notification that would be required. We're talking, we've been reviewing the existing special permit and its conditions, always, or at least since the expansion didn't work out, always knowing that we are going to have to file an application to modify the existing special permit. That is a application to modify, and it is required to do the publication and the notice to abutters, just like a new application would have. And if we do in fact require that special permit for an intensification of a pre-existing non-conforming structure, intensification in use, by special permit, then it would be appropriate to include an application for that as well, referencing the property address so that all the abutters are put on notice.
okay.
Definitely.
I'll see what you're saying, and this is at least my interpretation of what I understand you're saying. We're trying to adapt the special permit for 163, 165 over to 307.
Mhm.
So I would say stretching the special permit over to 307.
A bit, but I think if there's an issue that is separate, that needs addressing at 307, that's probably a new special permit. We just submit them at the same time.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask a question, out of my order, of the building commissioner, and what is your interpretation of what she's saying about moving the special permit, as I look at it, extending from 163 over to 307 and sort of borrowing part of 163, 165 special permit?
Yeah, so I would say, and I think Attorney Tree just touched on this, they would need to do a special permit for 307 to extend that continuation of the nonconformity. In this particular case, I don't see how, when you read through section 9 of 40A, and I'm not familiar with any cases that allow the extension of a special permit issued on one property, attaching other properties to it unless it's specifically attached to certain uses like scientific research and development. So I don't believe in this case you can modify the special permit for 163, 165 Pine Street to include an off-site premises. I think Attorney Tree just touched on it. She would need to apply for a special permit for 307, go through that permitting process, notice to abutters to extend the existing nonconformity of the current driveway.
So I think we just agreed that we need a special permit application for 307. If there is a nonconformity that we are intensifying the use of, that we need a special permit to expand. And the access driveway, the requirement is at least 24 feet wide at its narrowest point, and I do see that we are 22.9 on the existing access driveway.
Cut short a foot, 3 inches.
I didn't catch that, I'm sorry.
That if I've been, magnified the access driveway,
Yes.
the requirement is 24 feet and it is 22 feet 9 inches wide. So there is gonna be, that is gonna be pre-existing non-conforming
versus 24.
versus 24.
Attorney Tree, does that garage go to the property line?
7 foot 8.
No,
Oh, no, it doesn't.
there
Okay.
is, it's 7'8" from
Okay.
the property line. Which I don't think is enough to fit a car down, but maybe a motorcycle.
Is it paved on that side? The garage? Do you recall, John?
I think it's partially paved, I don't think it goes all the way back to the garage though. I think it probably goes about 9 feet back.
I have a draft easement to circulate, which was the other thing that was asked for. There's enough copies. Mariella, this is for you. And, and I'm going to, I'll leave the PowerPoint, but there's nothing in the PowerPoint in there. There was discussion at the last meeting about having an appropriate easement deed that would be on record, that addressed some of the concerns that arise when you have other people parking in the lot. And what this easement does is it grants the easement to pass, repass, and park in 2 specific sites. The plan would be attached, and the spots would be designated on the plan as they you saw just now. The agreement imposes upon the grantor, the owner of 307 Pine, some obligations. And that is in the paragraph at the bottom, right there, those obligations are described. So it talks about maintenance of the asphalt, fixing of potholes, fixing of cracks, a review on an annual basis of the condition of the parking lot, and then that parking lot maintenance performed within a reasonable period of time, which is assumed to be 6 months.
And who's responsible for that?
The owner of 307 Pine. It also talks about snow plowing, salting, and sanding being an obligation, and maintenance of light fixtures and supply of the utilities required to make those light fixtures go. Light fixtures are given a 30-day window to be repaired, and then with snow removal, it's going to be 12 to 24 hours or as otherwise reasonable, depending on how many feet of snow we get at any one time.
You never know.
No. And then if you go to the next page, the paragraph at the top provides for cost sharing. So there's proportionate cost sharing from the owner of 163, 165 Pine Street to 307 Pine Street. Right now, we have friendly but different entities, so we can have an easement between them, and we have this obligation between the 2 entities. It is not on the tenants. That would be pretty unreasonable. But the proposal is there's proportionate cost sharing. 307 Pine performs the work. There's a bill generated. The bill is presented to 163 with 165 Pine, and then is paid within 60 days. So that would be the arrangement for not only the permanent easement, but also the ongoing maintenance issues that were raised at the last hearing.
How does one establish the value of the work? Because 307 can say, I just spent $500,000 and I want my portion of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the law, we have this very erudite saying, pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered, I think is what it's, or it might be the other way around. But at any rate, if somebody thinks that it is worthwhile to pay attorneys or a team of attorneys to litigate whether it's reasonable to charge $500,000 to fill a pothole, they can do that. We can't resolve all future issues between parties, but we can provide the standard framework under which rights and duties exist. The courts are very used to dealing with this issue of what is reasonable. It's a factual question, and if the parties don't agree, that's a term that can be litigated by either party.
So
Hopefully never.
if I'm living at 163, 165 Pine Street, I'm already paying rent. That
Mhm.
would be including my parking. Now I'm gonna have to pay a subsidy.
No, because the obligation is between the property owners. It's not between the tenants at
We'll probably
163.
end up paying for it. Don't you think
All-
that they would increase the rent in order to pay for the expense?
Yes.
Especially, I'm not saying it's 500,000, but if it is a significant number, like you're gonna be repaving or it needs some other work, I'm gonna end up paying for it in the long run.
Mhm. There's always the possibility that the landlords can increase the rent at either unit for any reason, including
Right.
legitimate increase in costs or less legitimate desire to generate more profits for their owners, right?
Right.
We can again only set up the framework for parties to be reasonable and work together. There is no personal obligation to any tenant under this agreement. It is just part of whatever the charges are from the landlord in the rental agreement. But if you do want to take that into consideration, the place where it comes into consideration is whether or not it is really that worthwhile to add these additional off-street parking spaces. You know, I don't know what will happen in the future politically or with changes in the ordinance. I do always hear rumblings that there's going to be changes in the required parking. You know, I tend to credit these things when they actually happen and not when they might happen. But
we have to kind of look ahead, because if
Mhm.
we say okay and then things do happen, it's almost kind of too late.
So let's say that the parking requirements gets reduced to 1 space per unit, which, let's say that's within the realm of possibility. In that case, you have a building that already has sufficient parking on site. That is true. With a new application, it will be, if we end the review hearings here, or at least suspend them, and the next thing we do is submit the applications for modification and maybe the additional special permit, we are 2 months out. Right, we're 2 months out from that easily because we have to put the applications together. There has to be sufficient time for advertisement, and I believe we've already missed the deadline for the May meeting. So we're looking at June, the next time we'd be here. Maybe there would be a change in that time, maybe not. If there is a change in circumstances, we'd certainly be requesting to allow the parking as is. That would eliminate a lot of these troublesome questions for the board, for the building commissioner. And we'd be compliant with the ordinance, so I would say that, you know, we don't, when I say we don't require relief, I do think, you know, there's a few dimensional nonconformities in the maneuvering aisle back there and things like that, but the relief would be less.
All the tenants at will, or do they have leases?
We do leases across the board,
Written leases, 1 year in term?
typically
Mhm.
How long?
12 months.
A year.
On the easement agreement, what's the penalty to the, I'll say, the landlord if they don't adhere to the bottom? All right, I mean, it's nice to put this in words,
Mhm.
but what happens if they don't do it? You know, I mean, the tenants can complain, and nothing's happening. There's no real penalty to or any way to enforce
Mhm.
this.
So there is a way to enforce it. It requires an action for a specific performance, which is the court forces the owners to comply with the agreement. And that is an available remedy. It's a court remedy, but it's an available remedy. And I believe any modification is going to require this easement as a condition of the special permit. If there is a separate special permit for construction of that lot on 307 Pine Street, this easement can be a condition of that special permit. And then the board is going to also have some ability to bring the parties in for review, as it has done with us, for compliance with the special permit conditions. Those are the two ways I can think of. We can't always have automatic enforcement, though it would be nice.
Okay, thank you.
And I agree with you that there is a remedy if they do not comply, but using snow, your remedy is you've got to hire an attorney, go to court, start preparing your case, and by then the snow has melted.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's not a feasible or, I guess, a feasible remedy.
It's not an immediate remedy, and if there is consistent noncompliance with, let's say, the snow removal, there are damages, and there is injunction and an affirmative order possible from the court to comply. The remedy, if there is no compliance, is the court can hold them in contempt. So,
thank you.
to go way down the road.
Okay. I'll ask my members if you have any questions at this point. Lauren?
I actually only had one question. When you showed the overhead of the actual property, it appears that the driveway for next door, it is not a shared driveway, correct?
No, they have kind of like a U thing going on where they have access on two sides and they could somehow pull into our driveway if they wanted to. But there's a property line there. You can see the car kind of parked against the property line.
Right, okay.
I think that's,
They have separate curb cuts, but they definitely blend together.
Does the pavement touch?
Yeah.
It does.
Okay.
Hasn't been any issues over there with them parking?
Building's been abandoned for, I don't know,
And they've stayed off the
they had a
property?
fire a couple years ago.
Okay. That's it.
Okay. Richard? No?
I'm good.
I'm set.
Okay. Okay. Are there any city representatives who would like to speak regarding this application? Okay. Any abutters who would like to speak in favor of this application? For the record, I do not believe there are any abutters. Is there anyone who wants to speak in opposition to this application? For the record, there's no one else to speak in this opposition to this application. Okay, I'll just open it up to the board again if you have anything that just came up. No? No,
No,
nothing?
I'm good.
Nothing? Okay. Well, I think you brought some information to the board, a lot of information to the board. Potentially some solutions. I would just like to get a little more on the easement. Not from you, but I will make some calls on this, get some clarification. And I'm not sure if we need to continue this again, but I guess I would like to continue it again, because if I'm gonna get some information, I'd like to get it as quick as I can and move it forward, so.
Mr. Chairman, one of the things I'd like to do is to see the layout of the parking space at 163 and 165 Pine Street, how they're gonna actually, because there was two different pictures there. And I'd like to see now at the angle how that's gonna fit in there. And as you know, because we've been there, it's quite a drop off at the edge. But if they could lay it out, I would like to go and see how that's actually gonna look.
Okay.
just that one space, you would like marked out?
Then
Okay.
that new space number 8.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you had two different kind of pictures, and I've been there before for the initial special permit, so I want to make sure I'm clear on how that's located, and you mentioned there was an extra, or not an extra space like parking, but space available from the guardrail
Mhm.
area, so I'd like to kind of see that and for the turning radius.
Okay. So what we can do is temporarily mark the move over of that space number 1 with a little extra 2 feet there from the existing wall. And then we can mark space 8, but I just want to remind the board that there is currently a retaining wall in the middle of it, and so it may, it's going to go over.
Right, so they could put the stake or a
Mhm.
marker on the other side, so.
6'3", so you put it in for the pole and give us a mark where
Right, where it's
where
gonna,
the end would be.
it's gonna be.
Yeah, but it will be, I think, level with maybe a little bit of rise on the driveway to the
Because they're gonna
existing
fill
parking
that,
lot.
fill that spot in,
Mhm.
so it's level.
Yeah, that's the
So I
6-foot
understand
retaining
that,
wall.
but how
Mhm.
far is it gonna be? And then I noticed the guardrail's kind of crooked, well, or kind of makes a
Bump out.
bend, so
Follows.
be able to get that, a better view on that.
Okay. Would
Yeah,
you like
and-
the new retaining wall to be a little bit marked out then too? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can use either stakes or like spray paint, a little orange spray paint if you have to mark off. And I'd like to just expand, and I'd like to take a walk down to 307 and take a look at 307 and mark off where the parking is going to be.
Can we take a ride instead? Can we take a ride instead?
No. We'll get to see,
Whatever.
feel how the tenants.
You're gonna walk from 163, you're gonna walk down to 307.
You gotta get the feel of the tenants, what they would have to go through.
Like I said, I'm gonna take a ride.
I understand.
They're gonna be
that.
dropped off too.
I think-
Really, I really do want to emphasize, I think this is last resort off-street parking.
I understand.
It's what it is. And I just want to acknowledge the reality of the situation is that barring a snowstorm or, someone with 3 or 4 cars, which I don't imagine is going to be in that building, it's not going to be used that often.
Okay, what I'd like to do is confer after with my members here to see what might be a good time to attend, and most likely will be on I'm gonna say probably a Saturday, because many of you are working. And what I can do is get a couple tentative dates, given Mariella, and she can contact you and see what time, if it fits.
Thank you.
And we'll try to do that as quick as possible.
That would be great.
But I'd like to hear a motion to continue this the next month.
Motion to continue.
Second.
Okay, any comments? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition? Continued to the May meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, board members.
Thank you. Okay, the next case before the board, case 2024-09-03. It's a special permit continued, BCF Investment LLC, 75 Oak Street, parcel ID M27-24-57. Change of status of the building from a 2-family to a 3-family dwelling.
Good evening, board members. Attorney Christine Tree for
Welcome
Good
the
evening.
applicant. We are unfortunately, and I apologize for this, here to request a continuance one more time, waiting for the plan. I spoke with the engineer who has been retained, and that is Need Engineering LLC. They have been retained. They are scheduled to make the on-site measurements tomorrow. They state their time to production of the plan is 2 weeks. And so I'm here to ask for a continuance for one more month until May. I do have that written request as well as the fee for the continuance with me. And I'm happy to sign an agreement.
I have a question on that. So is the engineer as part of it for the parking?
It is for the parking. It is for the parking only. And so because there's a difference in elevation, you would have asked for a topographical plan. Basically, part of the materials that are going to have to be produced in order to have that driveway permit through the DPW. Anyway, I did talk to Mr. Oliva about that. I got specifications for what he'd be looking for. The engineer has them, and so you should have a plan that shows the current topography, the proposed topography, and estimates the amount of material removed in order to get there. And it will be, obviously, because they're going out to the site, it'll have the on-site measurements of the spaces
And the curb cut?
and the curb cut.
Location of the sidewalk also.
Yes. All of that is part of the DPW permit and the materials that are needed. And Mr. Oliva did, of course, just remind me that we're going to need to do the accessible entryways to and from the sidewalk gradation after the driveway cut as well, so.
Okay, so they're requesting an extension to May.
Yes, please.
Do I have a motion to grant?
To make a motion, we continue 75 Oak Street till the May meeting.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? None? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, no opposition? Continue to the May hearing.
Thank you, Board
Look at an early
members.
night for
Thank
you.
Mr. Chair. An early night for you, right?
And an early night for us. Thank you.
And I'm just going to sign the continuance agreement, and then we fill that with the correct dates later.
Next case before the board, case 2025-04-01, special permit, Stephen Sine, 0 Emerald Street, I'm sorry. Parcel ID M22-25-5, construct two-family dwelling. Are you Mr. Sine?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Attorney Creed, you wanna stay for this one too?
I might as well make it clean sweep.
Easy girl.
We're gonna request this to be continued to next month. As I said, when I found out yesterday, there was gonna be a half a presentation this month, half a presentation next month. No, we're gonna do a presentation in 1 month and get as much as we can in one. If we have to continue for lack of data, just like with Attorney Tree, we'll do that. Also, there was an error made in terms of how it was advertised. One was two-family homes, and an application that said two multi-family homes, which are not identical. And so that's published out in the newspapers to the abutters, et cetera. We have to make sure the data is identical. You know, an individual might think it's just gonna be two single families. Somebody else is saying now it's gonna be multi-families. So we have to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Yes, sir.
So what we're going to do, and I'm gonna call for it, is to continue this to next month. I will state this, though. We will not charge you another $350
Thank you.
because the error was ours and not yours. So that's the good part of this. The other one is we're gonna continue to next month.
Okay.
So I do hear a motion to move or continue to next month.
Make a motion, we would continue it, 0 Emerald Street,
Emerald Street.
Emerald Street,
Yep,
till next month, and to waive any applicable fees.
that's correct.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Are we not charging the customer for the continuance either?
That,
And waive any applicable fees.
Perfect.
yeah, because that's our fault that it's
Okay.
happening.
I'm gonna use that phrase,
You like that one?
or any part there.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? No opposition? Continuance granted.
If I could just add, we were before the planning board, this is just kind of bigger picture context. We were before the planning board 1 week ago, and we will be going back to the planning board in May again. How does that meeting schedule fall with the ZBA?
I don't know when the planning board meeting is.
I don't think they meet the same night.
They don't.
We do.
Oh, no, I just wanted to know if we were gonna be,
ZBA is after planning, so ZBA is
Okay.
May 20th, I believe planning is
Okay.
So it'll be
Okay. If there's anything we can do for the board ahead of time, just let us know, and we can try to make sure you have as much information as possible.
Well, I think that's fair, but like we know, there's nothing been presented tonight. So we can't come up with a list of questions that we need.
Yes, sir.
We can read what's in the file, but,
Okay.
you know, something in a presentation may come out differently.
Is it appropriate to forward any information from the planning board or answers to anything?
Yes, write to Mariella, and then she will get it to us.
All right.
And I think that's a good approach, because if the planning board comes out with questions, comments, information, we want to make sure they don't put any conditions in there that may conflict with zoning.
Correct.
So I'd like to get as much data as we can. And I always say that's one of the issues between planning and zoning is which one do you really go to first?
That was my question at the meeting. So we'll forward you on any information that we have as it relates to the planning board, and any questions or comments from that, we'll make sure you guys have them ahead of time.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in. Okay, we've got we're gonna vote on, there was an amendment made to Mr. Roy Coppinen on 68 Acadia Road. We did vote that. However, there was a couple of discrepancies in the decision. We mentioned the 100-foot no-build zone. It was a 60-foot no-build zone.
It is a 60-foot no build.
Yeah, so
Yep.
that number had to be changed in the
Okay.
decision. And also, there was a couple technical errors on book and page, which was caught very quickly. But since the decision had been made, we voted last meeting, but we gotta vote that those changes are appropriate. And I know I compared them after the initial run, and so, I'm just gonna ask for a motion to approve the changes made. There's a
I would make a
motion.
motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? None? All those in favor of the changes? Aye. Approved unanimously. That's that, and
Do you need signatures on
I don't think so, Lori. Oh,
that? Maybe one?
Well, you just changed it, so you probably need
Yeah, will we
a
not need a whole new document to sign?
whole new document.
why don't we just all put our signatures on it tonight? You know, put the date, and we're okay.
On somewhere along that.
Is all the members here that heard that case?
Yes. No.
Did you sit on Coppinen, on Acadia?
No.
No.
You sat on Acadia? I did.
I was here.
Mr. Rice would be
So
here
we're okay
also.
with the four.
There's only four of us.
There's only four?
Yep.
So where would you like me to sign? I think we should number these pages though as well, so that we know that there's the number of pages that go along with this document.
Yeah,
2,
1,
3,
2, 3, 4, 4. And I would say we'd sign it on the last page.
Okay.
And we can just put approved on the 15th of April. I would like to get a couple of dates from all of you. You know, and when it might be good to go on a Saturday. And if you've got a time, give me a time preference too.
I'm an early riser. My Saturdays are usually free, so I can make it work.
Okay? Mel,
Well, anytime after 10, I'm available.
after 10?
There goes the early rising thing.
Yeah, that's,
After that?
oh yeah, well, I'll go midnight if you like. Not 9, not 8 in the morning. That's it.
And Mr. Ante, are you gonna be around?
I will be back for May 3rd, Saturday, May 3rd. Are you gone?
What day are we talking? This coming Saturday?
No.
May 3rd.
Oh,
Oh, I won't be around.
this
May
Saturday,
3rd.
if,
That, I'm not around. I think I'm going to South Carolina.
when?
I'm gonna be down there. My granddaughter's birthday is today's May 4th, so I'll be down, I leave May 2nd, and I won't be back till 6 or 7.
How about, can we pull it off for this Saturday?
I could do this Saturday.
So could I. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be at home baking for Easter.
Yeah.
Is Christine still there?
I will say no,
She's just.
for the same reason.
Easter.
Because of Easter.
Yeah, because between my
I'm
family
available
and
Friday.
my daughters and their families, you know, we'll be working, preparing stuff, and
Oh, is this weekend the holiday?
And Monday is
Patriot,
Patriots Day. Yes. Do they still call it that?
I don't know, they keep changing names for a lot of,
Well, every day's a holiday anymore, so I can't tell the difference.
I am very envious.
I didn't say that.
I know.
A lot of my days are holidays,
All right, let's see what we got.
Getting there.
So we'll be into May.
right,
What's wrong with the 26th?
What's the 10th look like?
What was,
I would think that'd be clear for me.
that'd be good for me.
no.
But Mal is saying, what's wrong with the 26th? I heard
Yes.
ya.
What day?
The 26th.
Of May?
No.
No, April.
Oh, April.
I won't be here.
How dare you?
So
I
that'd
know
be-
it, I know it, how
That
dare
would
us.
be, not next Saturday, but the Saturday after, right? Yeah.
That's May 3rd. Is that what you were
No,
talking?
he's saying April 26th.
April 26th.
Right, and then the following Saturday,
Yeah, but you can't make the 26th?
No.
Is that what it is?
I'll be in North Carolina.
Well, maybe you two can get together, you're gonna be a state apart.
Do we all go together? Split the fuel. with
Well,
you.
we're gonna be on the Lumber River, so
Oh. My only conflict will
when
be,
are you coming back in May?
I'll be back, the 7th, which would be a Tuesday.
Yeah, the first 2 weeks of May is dead for me. My wife's getting her knee replaced, so.
Well, not your knee.
No, but you wanna come over and take care of her while I go up?
I've been through it.
All right,
I don't need to come over.
You understand.
All right, let's get another date.
Looks like the 24th is.
Well, let me ask something, do we all have to go together, or can we do it in
No,
two
you're
different
gonna have
groups?
to do it, I think, separately.
Huh?
I think you're right, separately. is good.
And I just want to say this out loud too, because I've had to deal with this with my own board members, that you want to be very careful to either post it that you're doing it or not be a quorum when you do it.
Well, if you split it, you're not a quorum.
Yeah, we'd have to go in with less than 4 people
Yes.
to not be a quorum.
Good night.
Good night.
Like,
Good night now.
Attorney Treat.
That should be easy enough to do. Just let me know the
And the
days.
thing we need to know first is who's the first group going in. Because I'm thinking of marketplaces, we don't want like you going in on a Sunday and there's nothing marked because they haven't done it yet.
But they're gonna let
Yeah, you
Mariella
gotta-
know when it's ready to be looked at, right? That's what the conversation was.
Actually, she said, that she was gonna mark it up and they were gonna have that ready for you guys, but she wanted to know when you guys were gonna go, to the property, to the site visit, for them to have that ready for you.
For me, it's anytime.
This
I-
is the 15th, right?
It is the 15th.
That's
I mean, the 26th, I mean, I'm gonna say it doesn't have to be Saturday, because not too many people happy if you do it on Sunday, but
I could do a Sunday.
I'm home on Sundays too.
They're all the same to me, so I don't
We
Not
established
really
that.
care. I know, why do you keep asking, you know?
I don't want you to feel left out.
If you are all going on a different date,
When are you gonna be free?
which date will be the one that
I'm
you
never
have
free.
to?
When are you
I
gonna be
think we're
reasonable?
probably gonna split up so you don't
Told you
have
the
to post
26th
it.
is fine by me. Anytime,
Two and a
anytime
half goes
before
one
May
day,
8th.
2.5 goes
But
on.
then if I don't post it,
April
and I see there's
26th.
four,
April twenty-sixth, I can go. Part of us can go to twenty-sixth.
I can go by myself,
Dave's the
right,
only
because
one.
I've been
so I
there.
need to be able
I-
to have a
You
date
know what I
for
mean?
site
I've looked
visit.
at that property a lot. I
Even
don't mind.
though
Yeah, but you
can
wanna see when these
all
things are
agree on
marked
different
out.
dates,
Right, right. I'm,
but I need to have at
Well, when are you
least
gonna
a
be
date
back?
for the
we'll
site
be
visit.
back,
Okay.
the 29th.
Do we have to post a
Well, we'll
lot?
see, we
We
can
can't
go
be
on the
discussing
20
it in the
right.
field
You
anyway.
gotta, you should post, what?
But we can go, do the twenty-sixth, he can be there 3 days later.
Yeah.
So we just tell him to keep the thing up to 3 days.
Yeah, if you're doing a site visit, you should post it, and minutes have to be kept with the site visit.
No, Lori's doing the minutes.
So if we're going to a site visit though, we're not supposed to liberate the field though, or can we do that if it's a posted meeting? No, because the public's not there. Public's not there, so
Right.
we can go look, keep our comments to ourselves,
That's right.
and then we come back here and
Here, we can
Yeah.
discuss,
Yeah, yeah.
deliberate here.
that's what I thought it would be, okay.
So, do you wanna do the 26th?
Yeah, and then
Fine,
when
Brenda.
I get home, I'll just go there on my own. I
You
don't
go on
have
your
a
own,
problem.
or one person could go with you.
Well, I might go with you for a charge. It costs you breakfast.
So excited to have Mel go with them.
I saw that.
Did you notice?
I did notice.
The exuberance was beyond description.
Well, because he's trying to get a free breakfast.
So
I'll
26th.
go with you for free breakfast.
Oh, now I got an entourage.
All right, Mariella, we're gonna look at the 26th of April. And what time is good for everybody?
I can do whatever.
Anytime?
9:30?
9,
10
10,
o'clock? 9:30.
anytime after 9, I'm okay.
9:30.
9:30 on the 26th?
Yes,
Ray's
sir.
buying the coffee.
And it,
163.
and then if you could just let them know when a stranger's coming, either the 29th or 30th, I'll go look by myself, or I'll scoop Mel and we can go down.
Well, if we go down, because I've already been there, I can tell you what happened.
Yeah, that would be good. So we'll have it done before the next meeting.
please.
Okay, 9:30.
Yeah, 9:30 is probably good, because I probably won't be home till midnight that night, so I can make 9:30.
Okay. All right. Any further business before the board? No?
I don't think so.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Wow, he's putting that on. Second.
Any
You
discussion?
gonna set a calendar?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.